image itself is telling the story that we've told through the last three albums. So the first concept album starts with um, a nihilistic main character that uh, lights himself on fire in order to escape reality, and ends up surviving. And then through that goes through like a personal transformation, and starts to see with new eyes, and develops himself. And then he ends up getting trained by these, like, it goes super like Star Wars style, like the hero getting
Yeah,
trained and
yeah,
having
yeah. And
the,
these are
the,
stories that you tell in more detail in your songs, right?
yeah.
Interesting. So there's a progression through the music, through the album, that story continues to flow, right? And
Yeah, and
be told.
from one yeah, it's like from one album to another, because the albums are supposed to be experienced almost like a movie. There's supposed to be a beginning, middle, end, certain like events that take place, and then leaving on a sort of cliffhanger, like a Netflix show or something, and then coming
Interesting.
back to it with the next album, taking off for where the last one left off.
Yeah. No, this is great. I love that. It's awesome because you you apply exactly what I teach in practice. I mean, there's different ways to go about this, right? Like some people don't have to do stories as archetypes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't. But fundamentally, you want to know how the visual direction of the brand relates to the theme and the music in some way, right? It doesn't have to be literal, it doesn't have to be exact. You just want to be aware of it so you can do it intentionally. And I mean, you followed this. I teach finding a big idea for your campaign, right? A campaign is something that you brand cohesively and consistently that aligns with your music, right? So an EP or an album launch, a single, whatever you want to do, right? It could even be a music video that you launch. Anything that's like a campaign that's kind of categorized and cohesive between the visual parts of the brand and the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to start, I say, identify the big idea of that campaign, right? And you just told me what the big idea was, right? The story of that, the guy that lights himself on fire is reborn and has that experience. And how it also fits in the other stories in your other albums, right? So you've already done that. And then the next part that I talk about is creating a visual image, right? That
Mm-hmm.
represents that big idea in a visual way. Okay. And you've done that too with this. So with that graphic. And then the next step is to make sure that you create that cohesive look. You use that on all your social media profiles and then merchandise. So I'm wondering if do you have any other assets created with this that are merchandise and social media on your social
Yeah.
media profiles?
Yeah. So there's a lot going on within this. There's the before and after of the main character, and then there's this like opposites, like balancing the opposites. There's like the moon and sun, sort of the polar opposites, light and dark, etc. That we there's it's also another like big idea within the band and within everything, is like finding this balance between things.
And
And
is this idea something that you and every member of the band share, that you're all kind of aware of?
it's probably more me than anybody, because it's just like the type of interests I've had for the last 10 years has been looking into certain world religions and spiritualities, and different mystical traditions, and seeing like what that core truth that they're trying to point to all is, and how it all sort of is
Yeah.
universal. So
So
I've
this is the theme in your music and the branding of it. Now, what I'm wondering is, when it comes to you, because you're basically in charge of the band, right? Are
for
there
the most part.
ever like conflict of ideas between your vision and the other members?
Yeah, like it happens sometimes. It's never really anything like it, there was no conflict with this. We all really liked it. It has a purpose that goes beyond the personal interests of the band members. It's actually, the purpose is to reinforce the fact that we are telling a story, because without, you know, a disclaimer or some kind of like in your face like way, hey, this is concept albums, this is like death metal with a story behind it, then without saying that directly, then I wanted to imply it indirectly with this single and say that, hey, like if you're just checking, if you just found us, then this is what we've been up to. This this song represents the journey that our character's gone through up until this point.
Yeah.
And so there was never anything like that. I think something that could come up is between like new, like when you do go to order new merch ideas, or you go and make a new t-shirt, like um who, like, you know, who's designing it, what artist did you pick? And for a long time it's been me finding those artists and helping cultivate the artwork, because it's what I love to do in the band, because it's not like I'm the vocalist, so it's not like I'm
Right.
sitting around playing an instrument all day. Like a lot of the stuff is more of um the operational stuff and getting this stuff done and finding artists and getting artwork and stuff. So I took it upon myself, and now the rest of my band knows that they can do the same thing if they want to, right? They can
Interesting.
find an artist and they can commission, if they have an idea that they want to make merchandise out of. We all have free reign to do that, to hit up that artist and get the artwork and stuff. So
So here's my question. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, because this is easier said than done, especially when you have multiple people who are involved in it, right? Like you have to have something that helps you get on the same page. Otherwise, there's no consistency, right? You have nothing to base decisions off of. So I'm trying to understand is if you guys have had that conversation, or it's just implied that this is the direction because that was a decision that you made and they just went along with it. Does that make sense?
yeah, well, the direction, because this direction has been consistent from the beginning of the band, that we were going to choose to go in a different direction from um, normal, like death metal is usually about, usually has more negative stuff, like it's gory, or it's like almost like a horror genre of music.
Right.
um, we purposefully went in a different direction where we wanted to be more philosophical and uh, I don't know, transcendental type stuff.
Okay.
That's
So together you guys made a decision that you were going to position yourself differently than typical death metal and kind of follow this theme instead of the typical things that a death metal band would do. So you
yeah,
guys did make that decision together.
yes.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason why we all like the band and like where the direction is, because it does reflect that in
You all
who
bought
we
into
are.
the same vision, bro.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's fundamentally nothing to disagree on, right?
Yeah, besides the minutia of
Right, but that's
colors.
just minutia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Like if you have the
there's
big picture and an agreement on that, everything else
yeah.
is the details can be sorted out. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and our music's really complex, and it takes a lot just to write a song. So like it's not like everybody can do everything. So usually the guitar players are working on writing guitar riffs and sort of putting them in a structure, and then the drummer is writing drum parts and like figuring out every little note, and if he's going to do a paradiddle here or a double paradiddle here and
That's
what kind of fill.
craziness. That's, I love that you do that. I think that's awesome. But when I think about doing that, like my brain would just explode, you know, like from all that detail. Like I could do a paradiddle, no problem. But well, it's interesting because this is exactly what I teach in my music branding accelerator. I teach how to define the vision, which is what you guys have done together. And you do that as a band or as an artist And that leads your decisions and your thought processes and guides the minutia, right? If not, you're just, I mean, it just makes it so much easier to make decisions. And because you know everything that doesn't matter, right? You know everything that doesn't say no to. So that's awesome. So here's my question. You have this. How did you get the? So how did you take it from concept, right? So you had the idea, you had the vision.
Yeah.
How did you take it from that concept to this physical, this visual creation?
Yeah. So it was a lot of brainstorming on my part, um, how we can use this opportunity to put out a single between album periods, which is 3 years now. So we wanted to put out some new music. We chose a song from a list of new songs that we had been writing, and uh, and I wanted to reinforce the story, where it started and where we are now, and um, and I don't. It just so oh that's what happened. So I pay attention to a lot of different artists. I follow them on Instagram or Facebook, and I like visionary art. That's one of my things. Like,
Yeah.
um, so I always have my eye on certain artists, and there's certain artists that I would really, really want to work with, and there's certain more undiscovered artists that are really great. And that was the case for this guy. His name is Silvio. I think he lives in Portugal, um, or Brazil. I found him on Instagram. His his already his artwork matched up and aligned with our big picture.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, it wouldn't be too hard to work with this guy, because it almost feels like he's already telling some of that story that we're trying to tell.
Yep. Yeah.
So I got in contact with him. I sent him some ideas. What I actually did was I took 2 of his previous artworks that he had in his catalog, and I took aspects of each of these 2 previous artworks, and
Mm-hmm.
I used my phone to kind of merge them together, to kind of create one picture. And then I showed it to him, and I was like, I want to have this like guy, like, so he had a picture of a person in sort of this lotus pose, and I took that, and he had also a picture of a guy that had this like exalted sort of sort of elevating, ascending kind of theme.
Yep.
And 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 the original one, he had like 2 dots. They weren't moon and sun. I came up with that on my own to like try to bring in that opposing opposites kind of thing. um but I showed him that initial idea that I wanted to show a before and after of the main character, where it started and where you are now. And he's sort of a superhero now. He's got special powers that
He's transcended.
yeah. So so we just started working on stuff, and then like these flame kind of things. A flame is another big, or fire is another big branding element that we use. A lot of our songs have, like, we have one of our most popular songs is called "The Temple of Flame."
Well, you also say too that a continuing theme in your brand and this character, the story that it's on, is he sets himself on fire to be reborn. So you're
There's
just
another
visually
one.
representing that idea with the fire and the artwork. You know what's interesting though is once you have the concept and the idea, like let's say it's too advanced, you can't do that yourself. Like I could never draw this myself, right?
Me either.
You couldn't either. But once you know what you want, it becomes easy to find ways to communicate that to somebody who has the skill to bring it about.
Yeah.
So you can find examples to send somebody. You can tell the artist the big picture, the big idea that you're going for. Give them some visual examples of things that are already out there to convey your ideas and get on the same page. And you can give it to them and get exactly what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I teach how to do this in music brand. It's called, your brand core: graphics, color, and typography, right? So
Yeah, we could touch on color real quick too, because I actually got that from your podcast. Um, when we were coming up with or working on, all right, we need to get album artwork for the single. We want to make T-shirts out of it, and we want to make like put like flags and stuff, like you can hang on your wall, different merch items. So we wanted to make some cool artwork, and I actually had everybody in the band. I got this idea from your podcast. I had everybody in the band give me a color that represents their musical expression the most. And one of them was red. One of them was this pink, this sort of pinkish stuff. He called it something, some type of pink. I forget what it was called.
So a red, a pink. What were some of
Uh,
the other ones?
Blue. It's red, pink, blue.
I can see all of those colors in there. But of course, I mean, you'll have
Oh,
different
orange.
different shades, like different variations. But the fundamental thing is, you pick colors based on how you want to convey the emotions that you want to convey to represent your music. And once you know that colors are represent different emotions, you can pick the colors that you want to convey, right? That represent those emotions. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. So how did you tie this in? So now that you have you have your vision, right? You have your you have your vision, you have the basics of your brand. You have the ideas that you want to communicate through your music and about the album, and you have the ability to find your brand core, so your graphics and art style, your typography, and your colors. You give them to the artist, and you create this graphic. Now, how do you use, because you want branding consistency, right? Like once you have, for your album or your campaign, as I teach in music brand campaign, you want to have consistency across all platforms so that when people see your stuff, they instantly know who you are and have a consistent experience. So
Yeah.
how do you apply this as a starting point and then use it across like your social media and then your merchandise? Do you have
Um,
any examples of that?
yeah. Um, so with this, we just uploaded this as we changed our Instagram profile to this picture. It's really bright and it sort of pops, the same thing for our Facebook, because this was our campaign. We're promoting this song. And our Facebook banner at the top of the page,
Do you have any
we have,
pictures of that?
yeah, let's see. I think we
Just
have,
I think your social media profile,
let's
so the
see.
timeline, so the banner at the top, and
I think
then
it's still up.
maybe your Instagram, just so they could see,
Yeah.
how it applies together. Ladies of Metal, nice. Yeah.
Here we go. So this
Yep.
is what our Facebook looks like. We've got this graphic here with, new single out now, where to get it, where to get the merchandise, which is our label. And
Yep.
we also, so if you if you scroll down on our page, pinned to the top of our page is another example of taking this artwork and reformatting it into a lyric video.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that so cool? Like it all, it's not like this confusing thing that's all over the place, right? If you start with an idea, you can follow a process and steps to create one thing that matches that idea and then use that on all your stuff.
Exactly. So we like, I think I got set when I going back to like getting more than one use out of some big project, the single in this case. We did that, like we probably got 7+ uses out of this single, and we really got a lot of mileage on it. And we also timed it, to go out to when it actually launched, to announce that we've signed with this new really hype up and coming label. So on the same day we released the song, we announced that we were signed to a label called the Artisan Era. And and doubled down on the publicity of it, because that together we were promoting it, our label was promoting it, and then all the fans of that label were checking it out. So that
Nice.
helped. But as far as other things that we got, so we had merchandise. We had a tank top, a shirt, a wall flag, and a patch.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, look, there's only so I'm seeing three. There's three basic parts to this. So you have your main brand, which is your logo, right at the top there.
Mm-hmm.
You have your sub brand. What is that? Supernal Flame, Supernal.
Yeah, Supernal Flame, the name
That's
of
the
the
name of
song.
the campaign, the name of the
Yeah.
song, right? And then you have um, the cover art, the main artwork for the campaign for the song. And so you've used those three components everywhere to create this sub brand. And it's got a really strong, unique look that, you know, aligns with, you know, who you guys are as artists. And you've been able to use it over and over and again. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
awesome.
we put tour dates on the back of this shirt and brought it on our last tour, and that was our top seller because, one, it's a cool shirt, like it's sort of loud and like got this cool imagery on it if you're into that. And then we had tour dates which helped make the shirt more valuable.
Yeah, because they only get it on that tour. It was like a memory, right?
Yeah, so always, if you're on a tour, always put tour dates on at least one shirt, because it'll help sell more.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
The other thing we did, which I'm really excited about, is we made our own coffee
You
out
made
of.
your own coffee. That's freaking cool, dude.
I had a friend hook me up with this guy that started this company called Grindcore Coffee, where he works with different bands to help them create like unique merch, such as coffee. And so I had all these all this artwork, sitting there, all really high definition, big TIFF files and PSD
Yeah,
files. So all I did was send him all that stuff, and he was able to put together this packaging. And actually, hold on.
it's awesome. Heavy metal coffee. I love it.
So you're actually the first person to see this outside of like the people I live with, but these just came in. So here's the like, it's got super pro packaging.
Here, can you stop sharing your
Yeah, yeah.
screen and make your window bigger?
So
Yeah.
here's the front.
Cool. That's cool, dude. Yeah, that's what I love about branding music. It's so fascinating to me. And there you guys are, dude. That's freaking awesome.
And the guy put together the packaging, and he grabbed from our bio this like phrase that says, "Seek out new boundaries of extremity and creativity and then annihilate them."
Oh my gosh, what are the odds that aligns with your guys' vision?
Exactly.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, that was another one where I was like, oh, this is like, it wasn't super hard to set up. All it was a friend of a friend, suggested it, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Well, you know what's cool is because you have clarity on your brand, right? And that, you know, you not just clarity on your brand and your vision, but also, you know, the graphics that create a professional, you know, present you guys as professionals. I mean, tons of opportunities open up for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That never would have been there if not. That's why branding is such an important thing. You know what I mean?
It's super important, and it's something I didn't think about really ever up until about 2 years ago, when I decided that, maybe it would be cool to have a new logo. If I were to think about that, like like consciously thinking about branding, what would the logo be like? Um, and like, I started to research branding a lot more, and that's how I found you. And so it's only, yeah, it was awesome, perfect timing. But it was only in the last few years that I've really even thought about it. Before, it was just like, okay, we'll get a logo, make sure it looks death metal style.
Yeah.
it wasn't as conscious, and now it's a lot more like intentional.
Intentional. How is that reflected into other facets? How is getting clear on your brand influenced other things about your music that you weren't expecting?
Um, I think it's important just so you don't confuse people, or people have a consistent view of you. When they see you, they know that this band's like about this and it's not changing. So you have like a more it helps to be consistent, right? Um, and then it just makes things easier. Like for me, for instance, it makes things easier. So when I go to write a new album, I have an idea of what we're gonna do. Like I've done this before. It's like writing a new book for the same with the same characters, introducing some new characters, bringing back old characters. Um,
Yeah. So it helps you make decisions and gives you clarity, not just inside your own head, right? But also the result is in your fans. Clarity there, consistency there. What would you say to a musician who is thinking that this is something that seems limiting? Branding is
that
something
what is?
that seems creatively limiting, or they don't want to be stuck in a box or pigeonholed into something. Have you found
Uh,
that branding yourself has made you feel stuck in a box?
no, no, not at all. It's made me feel more confident in what I'm doing. Um, I would say maybe think about that a little bit more if you're closed off to branding, or you don't think it's important. It's so important. Like any business, any successful business has branding elements to it. There's people, professional branding people that look at that. Like you don't also branding is good because branding is what sets you apart from other bands and other artists. Like if you didn't think about branding, or you don't have a like if you're just trying to do whatever, you know, it's you're going to be harder to differentiate from other artists.
Right.
Be-
Yeah. It's interesting too. And what you're saying is oftentimes we think that branding is about finding something that you think other people will like for its own sake, just so you can stand out and be different. Cause that's what people say you need to do. Right. But through the process of going through what you're doing, like this is branding music the right way. It all happens in here first. So it all happens with the artist getting clear first, not to make somebody else happy. The result might be that clarity and visual consistency and a strong brand that separates you from other musicians. But the part that happens first is the process you go through of getting clear on who you are as an artist and what you want to do, right? It starts with that. So I think that flipping the script on that and thinking about branding your music in a little bit different in the way that you did, like getting intentional about it, gives you space and creative freedom to really have fun with it and really love it. And if you don't have a brand, right, that you feel that way about, then it's going to cause some problems. Because if you don't love your brand, how are you going to have other people love it too? So
exactly. You need to be like 100% like bought into what you're doing, and know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
going to it's going to motivate you. Like
Yeah.
without that, it's going to be hard to even like, what do I do?
Yeah. And it's going to be yours too. So you won't feel like you did it just because somebody said, oh, okay, well, you need to have a brand. You're like, okay, well, whatever. It's yours, baby. It's your creation, and you feel
Yeah.
just as proud of it as you do your music. So that's
Yeah. It's
cool.
super fun to get into.
Well, awesome. Uh, Thank you, Jared, for sharing this with me and kind of taking me through how you use some of the principles that I teach to create your brand. The insights that you use were really helpful, and I hope that whoever's watching this right now will have some really good ideas they can use to take. I would also say too that if you want to um, take more steps and get clarity on your brand and how to do that, I have my music branding cheat sheet at musicianmonster.com/brand. You can download it. It's totally free. And it'll go over the 3 ways that you can create an original brand that matches the sound of your music, very similar to the way Jared showed you today. when you sign up too, you'll also get a discount on the Music Branding Accelerator, which is the first lesson from my music brand course. That'll teach you how to get the vision for your music, right? So, and Jared, is there anything else you would like to talk about or say related to this?
I think we covered it. I was just gonna say, like try to get more if you are releasing a song, maybe make a music video, even if the music video's from the studio when you recorded it. Um, and then put your graphics on that, make the branding consistent on that. And the other thing is download the free stuff that you're offering. Don't take advantage of it, and think about branding because it is how you stand out, and it is like how you express yourself as an artist. So it is really important.
Right.